Welcome to this English masterclass to help you become fluent in English. Of course, I'm Jennifer from JForrest English. Now let's get started. First, in this masterclass, we're going to review 5 very common jokes in English. Jokes can be so difficult for students to understand, so don't worry, I'm going to explain these jokes so you can improve your fluency. Let's get started. This lesson is all about jokes, which is of course something humorous to make you laugh. Another name for a joke is a pun, a wordplay, or a play on words. All 3 of these are the same, and they're a joke about the English language, about how words can sound the same but have different meanings, and that makes it humorous. It makes it a joke. And maybe you've heard of a dad joke. This is also a pun, and it's a very typical, stereotypical joke, an obvious joke that almost makes you roll your eyes when you hear it. Something that your dad might share with you. So here's our first joke. Are you ready to laugh? Did you hear about the cheese factory explosion? There was nothing left but debris. Get it? Do you get it? Now, when I say get it, that means do you understand? Do you understand why this is funny? Do you know what brie is? Brie is a specific type of cheese. It's a soft cheese and it's delicious. Now, what about debris? Do you know what debris is? This is a noun, and debris represents broken or small pieces of something whole. So let's take an example. There was a storm, a really bad storm. So you have something whole, maybe a barn. But after the storm, that whole barn is in tiny pieces, and those pieces are everywhere. Those pieces are debris. For example, there was a lot of debris after the storm. And notice my pronunciation compared to the spelling. Debris, E. Do you notice that debris, brie sounds exactly like brie cheese? That's part of the joke. We'll come back to that in a second. So let's review our joke again. Did you hear about the cheese factory explosion? There was a lot of debris. So explosion, what happens after an explosion? There's debris. But this is at a cheese factory. And remember, brie is a type of cheese. So you can imagine there's tiny bits of brie cheese everywhere. So the brie cheese is the debris. So now you understand this joke and you can share it with your friends. Our next joke, why did the scarecrow win an award? Because he was outstanding in his field. Get it? Do you get the joke? First, you need to know what a scarecrow is. A scarecrow is a model of a person that you put in a field, and its purpose is to scare birds. A crow is a type of bird. So you want to scare the birds, scare the crows away from the field so they don't eat the crops. Now, what does a scarecrow do? It stands in a field. So notice this part from our joke. Because he was outstanding in his field. He was outstanding in his field. Now, native speakers will use the word out to say not at home. And we often use out plus gerund verb being the activity. For example, my dad's out. My dad's not at home. My dad's out shopping. It's explaining the activity that he's doing away from home. My dad's out shopping. So technically you could say the scarecrow was out, not at home. And what was he doing? The scarecrow was out standing in his field. Are you with me so far? But there's an expression, to be outstanding in one's field. This is an expression that means that you're exceptionally good at your occupation. My occupation is teaching English as a second language. So if you think I'm doing an amazing job, you can say, Jennifer, you're outstanding in your field. The field being teaching English. Jennifer, you're outstanding in your field. Put that in the comments if you think that's true. If you want to like this video, of course, press that like button too, and put, Jennifer, you're outstanding in your field. But let's say that I live on a farm and there is a big field on my property. Technically, you could say Jennifer's out, not at home. Jennifer's out standing in her field. So this is literally what I'm doing. So now you know why that scarecrow won an award, because he was outstanding in his field. Get it? Get it? Yes, you do. Our next joke. I used to be a baker because I needed dough. Get it? Do you get the joke? When you knead dough, you press dough, which is a mixture of flour, water, and eggs. You press dough repeatedly and firmly with your hands. And of course, a baker is someone who bakes bread, cookies, cakes, and other desserts as their occupation. So a baker, of course, kneads dough every single day as part of their job. Now notice the pronunciation of knead. What does it sound like? The verb to knead. And did you know that dough is a slang expression for money? So if you said, I need some dough, it means you need money. The baker kneaded dough. This is literally what the baker did. The baker kneaded dough. The baker needed money. So now you understand why I used to be a baker, because I needed dough. Get it? Now you do. Our next joke. Let's see if you can get this one. I only know 25 letters of the alphabet. I don't know why. Get it? Do you get the joke? I like this one actually. How many letters are there in the English alphabet? Of course, there are 26 letters. The person in this joke knows 25 letters. So it means that they don't know one letter of the English alphabet. The one letter that they don't know is the letter Y. This explains the I don't know why part of the joke. But of course, the letter Y sounds like the question why? Why? It's exactly the same pronunciation. So said another way, I don't know why I only know 25 letters of the alphabet. So now you know joke number 4. This is probably a dad joke. I don't know if it was very funny. It probably made you roll your eyes a little bit, but I like this joke. I like dad jokes. Are you enjoying this lesson? If you are, then I want to tell you about the Finally Fluent Academy. This is my premium training program where we study native English speakers from TV, the movies, YouTube, and the news so you can improve your listening skills of fast English, expand your vocabulary with natural expressions, and learn advanced grammar easily. Plus, you'll have me as your personal coach. You can look in the description for the link to learn more, or you can go to my website and click on Finally Fluent Academy. Now let's continue with our lesson. And our final joke, this is the most popular joke in English. Let's see if you know it. What did one plate say to the other? Dinner's on me tonight. Get it? This is a good joke. You have to share this with your friends after you understand the joke. So let me explain it to you. Of course, you know what a plate is. And in our joke, we have one plate saying to another plate, dinner's on me tonight. Now this is a joke because there's a literal meaning and a figurative meaning. So the literal meaning, you eat dinner on a plate. So of course dinner is on the plate tonight because that's where you eat dinner. But let's talk about the figurative meaning. Let's say I'm out for dinner at a restaurant with my friends, and towards the end of the meal, when the bill comes, I say, "Dinner's on me tonight." That means I'm paying for dinner tonight. So you definitely want to go out for dinner with me because I always say, "Dinner's on me tonight." So that's why this is a funny joke, because there are two separate meanings. There's the literal meaning, you eat dinner on a plate, and there's a figurative meaning where when you say dinner's on me tonight, it means you're paying for dinner. Now you don't only have to use this expression with meals, you can use it with other things. For example, the movie's on me tonight, I'm paying for the movie. The movie's on me tonight, you can get the next one. Amazing job. Now make sure you share those jokes with your friends. And if you could only share one joke, which one would it be? What's your favorite joke? Share that in the comments. And now let's move on and keep expanding your vocabulary. You're going to learn common phrasal verbs. Now, in this next section, first I'm going to quiz you to see how well you know these phrasal verbs. But don't worry, because after the quiz, I'll explain each phrasal verb in detail. So let's start the quiz now. Question 1, we should the party with some karaoke. Now, I'm only going to give you 3 seconds to answer, so feel free to hit pause, take as much time as you need, and when you're ready, hit play to see the answer. We should kick off. Question 2, you don't need to. Your team, I've heard great things about them. Talk up. Question 3, make sure your team doesn't while the CEO is here. Horse around. Question 4, it really, when Jeremy took credit for my work. Ticked me off. Question 5, he's been since he lost the contract. Moping around. Question 6, we're on a tight budget, but we have enough to get by. Question 7, the expense reports have been since Sarah left. Piling up. Question 8, I've learned to my mother when she gives me relationship advice. Tune out. Question 9, she used to be very serious, but she's a bit loosened up. Question 10, my boss is going to when she learns we lost the account. Flip out. So how did you do with that quiz? Don't worry if it was difficult, because now I'm going to explain every phrasal verb in detail. Let's get started. Number 1, to tune out. This is a very useful phrasal verb because it's used to say you stop listening to someone, you stop paying attention to them because you don't like what they're saying, basically. So you tune someone out. This is something that kids do all the time with their parents, right? If your parent is giving you advice and you don't want to hear it, you just tune them out. So your parent is talking, but you're just not really listening. So you might say, I always tune out my mom when she gives me relationship advice. Now, this can also happen a lot in a workplace situation. Let's say the coworker that sits beside you is just a very negative person and complains a lot. You might just simply tune them out. So you stop listening to them because you don't want to hear all that negativity and complaining. So you just tune them out. They're talking, but you're not listening. Number 2, to tick off. This is a useful one because it means to annoy, to anger, or to irritate. Now, we use this in 2 very specific sentence structures. It ticks someone off. It ticks me off when my coworker doesn't help. So it ticks someone off, and then you explain the situation that causes the anger, the frustration, or the irritation. Now, the other sentence structure is just to say someone or something ticks me off. John really ticks me off. He's so negative. John really irritates me, frustrates me, annoys me. John really ticks me off. He's so negative, but I just tune him out. Number 3, to talk up. And you talk someone or something up. And that means you speak in a way that makes that someone or something sound really beneficial, really positive, really amazing, maybe even more so than the reality. So let's say you're in sales and you're trying to sell this piece of software to a company. Well, you're going to talk up that software. You're going to talk about that software in a way that really highlights all of its positive features. And you probably won't mention any negative features. You're going to talk it up. Or let's say that your really close friend applied for a job in your company. Well, you're probably going to talk up your friend. You're going to speak about your friend very enthusiastically, very positively, because you want your friend to get the job. You're going to talk up your friend. Number 4, to pile up. This means simply to increase in amount. And we generally use this with work. So in general, you could say work is really piling up. Work is increasing in amount. You can use this with specific work. So you might say, my expense reports are piling up. Or even with household chores, you might say the laundry is piling up. The dirty dishes are piling up. They're increasing in amount. Number 5, to mope around. To mope around, this is when someone moves from one location to another, but they do it in a very unhappy way, a lazy way, a disappointed way. And it's generally because something is wrong. Something specific is wrong. So maybe they just lost their job, or they just broke up with their girlfriend, so they mope around the house all day. They go from the couch to the kitchen, back to the couch, but they look really upset and lazy and no energy. So this isn't really a positive thing. We generally say, stop moping around. You need to stop moping around and start looking for a job. If that's the reason why you're moping around, because you lost your job. Stop moping around and look for a job. Number 6, to loosen up. This is a great one. It means to be more relaxed, more comfortable, or less serious. So you might say, she was very shy at first, but then she loosened up. So she became more relaxed, more comfortable. Now, we often use this as advice to someone. If someone is just being too serious, you might say, loosen up, loosen up. It's similar to saying, relax a little, loosen up. You need to loosen up. Oh, just loosen up. Number 7, to kick off. This is a great one because when you kick something off, it means you start. But we use this in the context of a sports event, a meeting, a conference, or even a party. So some sort of event with people. So in sports, it's very common to say the game, the match kicks off at, and then you say the time. The match kicks off at 3. The game kicks off at 7. And that's just when the game starts. Now, you could also say, let's kick off the meeting by, and then you can explain how you're going to start the meeting. Let's kick off the meeting by introducing the new CFO. Or let's kick off the meeting by sharing the good news. Number 8, this is a fun one, to horse around. When you horse around, you behave in a silly or noisy way. So basically what children do all the time, they horse around. But you might say, the kids were horsing around and they broke my favorite vase. Now, although this is commonly used in children, it can of course be used for adults as well, because adults act in silly and noisy ways all the time, right? Even in workplace contexts. So you might be talking about how your team is constantly horsing around. And as a bonus, you can also say goof around. It's an alternative, but they're both very commonly used. So horse around or goof around. Number 9, to get by. This is when you have just enough money to live on, but not very much extra. So you can basically pay all your bills and that's about it. So you might say, since our twins were born, it's been more difficult to get by. You have 2 new babies in the house. Well, first, congratulations, but of course that's very expensive. So now you only have enough money to pay your bills, to buy the food, buy the diapers, buy the groceries, pay your mortgage, things like that. We're getting by. We're getting by. You're just surviving. So if someone knows you're going through a tough time financially, maybe you lost your job, and they ask you, how's it going? Is everything okay? You could say, well, I'm getting by. I'm getting by, which lets them know you're surviving. You have enough to pay all your core expenses. And finally, number 10, to flip out. Now this can mean to become very excited, but it can also mean to become very angry or agitated. So it's when you have a very strong emotion, but that emotion can be positive, excitement, or it can be negative, anger. And it will be obvious based on context. So if you just won a competition or a prize or the lottery, you might flip out and become very, very excited, right? The sports team flipped out when they won the gold medal. Or the team flipped out when they lost the game. The team became very angry. So you can use it in both situations. And for this expression, you can also say freak out. Freak out, flip out, they mean the same. And again, positive excitement or negative anger. So now that you're more comfortable with these phrasal verbs, how about we do that exact same quiz again so you can see how much you've improved. So here are the questions. Hit pause, take as much time as you need, and when you're ready, hit play to see the answers. Here are the answers. Go ahead and hit pause and figure out how you did. Amazing job! Share your score in the comments, and now let's move on and review a news article together. Reading is one of the best ways to improve all areas of your English, so let's read the article together right now.
First, I'll read the headline. Man who likely stole X's cryptocurrency found not guilty, but judge urges him to help recover funds. First, let's talk about exes. A man's ex is the romantic partner he is no longer with, but was previously with. This is short form for either ex-girlfriend, ex-boyfriend, Or, of course, you can have an ex-wife or an ex-husband. Now, all of these start with ex. So instead of saying my ex-girlfriend, you can just simply shorten it and say my ex. Let's take a look at this example. I ran into my ex at the mall. When you run into someone, run is simply in the past simple. When you run into someone, this is when you see someone unexpectedly. So I did not plan to see my ex at the mall. It was a surprise. I ran into my ex at the mall. Now, obviously, that can be an awkward situation, potentially. Maybe even more awkward if you say, and I was with my new boyfriend. Because remember, your ex is the previous romantic relationship. It doesn't necessarily mean the immediate previous. It could have been 3 boyfriends or 3 girlfriends ago. It is just a previous romantic relationship. So this man was accused of stealing his ex-girlfriend's cryptocurrency, so cybercurrency. Now notice how it says who likely stole, who likely stole. Likely is an adverb of probability, and it is when something is more certain than not certain, but it's still not 100% certain. So there is some doubt in it. To me, likely sounds about 80% certain. It's more certain than uncertain. So a man who likely stole X's, notice that pronunciation, X's cryptocurrency. It's possessive because the cryptocurrency belongs to his ex. Stole X's cryptocurrency, found not guilty. But judge urges him to help recover funds. To urge someone. When you urge someone to do something, you simply strongly suggest. So a judge has the authority to order you to do something. But to say the judge urged him, it isn't an order. It's not something he must do. He is required by law to do. It is a suggestion, but it's a strong suggestion. For example, my teacher urged me to find a speaking partner so I can practice my public speaking skills. This is something I always urge my students to do. Notice that sentence structure. You urge, this is the verb, to urge, someone, and then infinitive, to do something. That's the sentence structure. The judge urged him to do, to help something, to help recover funds. To recover funds means to get the funds back. When you recover something, it means you get it back. I wrote that as a note for you. And don't worry about writing this down because I summarize everything in a free lesson PDF. And you can look in the description of the video for the link to download the free PDF. Let's continue. A man accused of stealing thousands of dollars in cryptocurrency from an ex-girlfriend. So this is basically what they said at the title, but notice here they used ex-girlfriend instead of just ex. And also notice how they have the article in front of man, a man. But here they just started with man. In the titles of articles, they want to keep it as short as possible, so they will omit words that are grammatically required. In this case, they omitted the article. The article a is required in front of man grammatically, but because it is the title of an article, the headline, it's acceptable to do. But you should include the article because it is required. A man accused of stealing thousands of dollars in cryptocurrency from an ex-girlfriend, an ex, likely did it. We already know what this means. There's an 80% chance, but that also means on the flip side, on the opposite side, the flip side, there's also a 20% chance he didn't do it. Likely did it. according to a BC judge. BC stands for British Columbia, which is a province in Canada. So this judge is located in British Columbia, which is shortened to BC. But the challenges of tracking those virtual coins mean he has avoided a conviction. A conviction is when a judge or a court officially says you're guilty. That means you've been convicted of a crime. So to be convicted, that's the verb form, and then conviction is the noun. Here's an example. He was convicted of stealing his ex's car. So he received the conviction. Somebody said, the judge said, you're guilty of stealing your ex's car. So to be convicted, and then this is a completed past action, so I conjugate my verb to be. He was convicted, and you're convicted of something. Now, because of is a preposition, the verb is in the gerund form. Speaking of gerund verbs, we also have the verb avoid, which is a gerund verb. A noun follows it in this example. He has avoided a conviction. If we used the verb form, it would be he has avoided. Do you know what we could say? He has avoided being convicted, because the verb is to be convicted, ed on convicted. Our verb is be, and because avoid is a gerund verb, the verb that follows it is going to be in the ing form. So you could also say he has avoided being convicted, or you can use the noun conviction. Let's continue. Though Orion Alexander Holtby was found not guilty. So this is the name of the man who was accused of stealing his ex's cryptocurrency, Orion Alexander Holtby. Though Orion Alexander Holtby was found not guilty, the judge said, you didn't do it, of fraud and theft, BC Supreme Court Justice Ward Branch urged him to find. Remember, you urge someone to do something. Urged him in the past simple. Listen to my pronunciation, urged. So it ends on a very soft D sound. Let me write that for you so you remember. Urged, urged, urged him, urged him. Ward Branch urged him to find a way to help the alleged victim. The alleged victim, who is that? That's Holtby's ex-girlfriend. The word alleged means that some people say this. Some people say that she's a victim, but it has not been officially proven. So that's why she's just an alleged victim. There isn't enough proof to say that she is, in fact, a victim. And same thing with the pronunciation. Notice this, alleged, alleged victim, alleged victim. To help the alleged victim reclaim her digital investment. Reclaim is the same as recover that we saw in the headline. So again, it simply means to get the funds back, to reclaim her investment, to get her investment back. Reclaim her digital investment, valued at about $92,000 in March 2021. The judge explained the Crown hadn't convinced him. The Crown represents the people who allege, remember, allege that Holtby stole the money. That group of people would be known as the Crown. The judge explained the Crown hadn't convinced him being the judge, The judge explained the Crown hadn't convinced him beyond a reasonable doubt that Joelle Oman, this is the ex-girlfriend, that Joelle Oman's cryptocurrency had been stolen at all. So this is interesting because the judge isn't convinced. When you're convinced, it means that you accept something as factual or accept something as the truth. But the judge hasn't been convinced that the money is missing, that the money, the cryptocurrency just represents money, that the money had been stolen. And notice they use the past perfect, had been stolen. So here the sentence structure is to be stolen, be stolen. So then we take our verb be and we put that in the past perfect, had been stolen, because a past perfect is a past action before another past action. So first the money is stolen, then the girlfriend, the ex-girlfriend, correction, the ex-girlfriend goes to the police and says, my ex-boyfriend stole my cryptocurrency. And then the Crown takes this to the court to try to convict the ex-boyfriend of this crime. So the fact that it had been stolen is a past before another past action. Here's an example that clearly shows the sequence of events. We had gotten married before we moved in together. So we have two past actions. This action happened first. It's the older action, so it's in the past perfect. Now, we had gotten married. The verb is to get married. So if you see married as an ED and you're wondering why, that's the expression to get married. So I keep married as an ED verb. I take my main verb get and I conjugate that as the past perfect. And then before we moved in together, this is also in the past, but it's more recent and it's the past simple. So this is the past simple here. Past simple. Let's continue. Were this a civil matter, I would most likely have found you liable to the plaintiff. Notice this conditional structure. Were this a civil matter? You may be more comfortable hearing it as an if statement, which is fine. You can absolutely say, if this were a civil matter. And to be honest, it is more common to use if statements. If this were a civil matter, notice the slight difference here. Were this a civil matter? And this is a conditional because this is hypothetical. This isn't the reality of the situation. But notice the judge is still saying, I would most likely. Well, now because he said most likely, I might increase the probability to 85% or 90%, because before it was I would likely. Now it's most likely. So maybe 85%, maybe 90% as well. More than likely. And here, found you liable to the plaintiff. Liable is a legal term that simply means responsible, but legally responsible. Legally responsible. So companies, for example, are liable for the products they sell. They're legally responsible for them. Parents are liable for their children. They're legally responsible for the children as well. So found you liable to the plaintiff simply means that you would be legally responsible to the plaintiff. The plaintiff is the ex-girlfriend. However, this is a criminal matter with a far more demanding burden. So suggesting that because it's a criminal matter, the amount of evidence you need to provide is a lot higher compared to a civil matter. The decision highlights how the criminal justice system is struggling to address crime in the cryptocurrency world. Now, notice here, struggle to do something. Just make a note of this sentence structure. Struggle to do something. Where high-profile frauds, like those committed by the founder of the Canadian exchange Quadriga CX, have cost investors millions of dollars. Here, a high-profile fraud, the adjective high-profile simply means one that attracts a lot of attention. So we could say that this legal case was a high-profile case. It attracted a lot of attention. Sean Tweed, a cryptocurrency investigator, said these crimes are both harder and easier to investigate than traditional theft and fraud. The issue is that the blockchain doesn't provide personal identifying information, so you can't decipher who specifically owns coins. Decipher is a verb, and it's used to say that you can discover the meaning of something. So here, you can't decipher who specifically owns the coins. So you can't understand who owns the coins because maybe the platform they use to store the coins, to keep the coins, is really difficult because it doesn't have the personal identifying information. It's in this blockchain, which can be really difficult to decipher, to understand the meaning of this blockchain, the cryptocurrency, where the coins actually are. Another example is, can you help me decipher this contract? Let's say you were starting with a company and they gave you this contract to sign, but contracts are generally written in a confusing way, even for native speakers. They use a lot of legal terminology that the average person does not understand. So maybe you ask a friend who's a lawyer to help you decipher the contract, to understand, okay, I understand these words, but what does it mean? Will I be liable for something? Liable, remember, means legally responsible. If you sign a contract, you might be liable for something because a contract is legally binding. So it's important that you decipher the contract fully so you know if you're liable. Let's continue. The judgment makes it clear the truth of the matter has been difficult to sort out. Let's take a look at sort out. When you sort something out, it means that you successfully solve a problem or a difficult situation. So they're saying that cryptocurrency has been difficult to sort out. It's been difficult to solve the problems related to it. Holtby, this was the man accused of stealing the cryptocurrency from his ex. Holtby did not testify. When you testify, it's when you appear in court and are asked questions by the lawyer and the judge. And usually it's in front of an audience, in front of a jury. That's to testify. So Holtby did not testify, and the judge said, Oman, the ex-girlfriend who lost the cryptocurrency, Oman was careless with evidence. So you don't want to be careless with evidence. When you're careless, that's the opposite of careful. So you're not taking a lot of measures to protect that evidence. So the opposite of careful. Careful, careless. Oman was careless with evidence, raising concerns about her credibility. One's credibility, it's similar to their reputation. If someone is credible, it means they're someone that you trust. They have shown you that they are deserving of respect and trust. But here, there were concerns about her credibility, suggesting that she was less credible, so less likely that you will trust what she says or respect her. And notice the sentence structure here. You raise concerns, which is another way of saying you make concerns known. You raise concerns. The judge raised concerns about her credibility. In general, Tweed says some police departments still don't have the training or software to properly investigate crypto crimes. Crypto is the short form of cryptocurrency. Crypto crimes, crimes related to cryptocurrency. Investigate crypto crimes, but he has seen. Now, the contracted form with an S, it can be the verb to be. For example, he's happy. So he is happy. He's seen. Now, in this case, I know it cannot be the verb to be because he is seen. It doesn't really make sense. It's not grammatical. So it has to be the verb has. He has seen. And this is the present perfect. He has, apologies, this should be has, not had. He has seen big improvements in the last few years. And that's the end of the article. So what I'll do now is I'll go and read the article from start to finish, and this time you can focus on my pronunciation. Man who likely stole X's cryptocurrency found not guilty, but judge urges him to help recover funds. A man accused of stealing thousands of dollars in cryptocurrency from an ex-girlfriend likely did it, according to a BC judge. But the challenges of tracking those virtual coins mean he has avoided a conviction. Though Orion Alexander Holtby was found not guilty of fraud and theft, BC Supreme Court Justice Ward Branch urged him to find a way to help the alleged victim reclaim her digital investment, valued at about $92,000 in March 2021. The judge explained the Crown hadn't convinced him beyond a reasonable doubt that Joel Oman's cryptocurrency had been stolen at all. Were this a civil matter, I would most likely have found you liable to the plaintiff. However, this is a criminal matter with a far more demanding burden, Branch said. The decision highlights how the criminal justice system is struggling to address crime in the cryptocurrency world, where high-profile frauds like those committed by the founder of the Canadian exchange, Quadriga CX, have cost investors millions of dollars. Sean Tweed, a cryptocurrency investigator, said these crimes are both harder and easier to investigate than traditional theft and fraud. The issue is that the blockchain doesn't provide personal identifying information, so you can't decipher who specifically owns coins. The judgment makes it clear the truth of the matter has been difficult to sort out. Holtby did not testify, and the judge said Oman was careless with evidence, raising concerns about her credibility. In general, Tweed says some police departments still don't have the training or software to properly investigate crypto crimes, but he's seen big improvements in the last few years.
Great job with that article. Now you can look in the description for the lesson PDF for that article. Now let's continue on and improve your listening skills so you can better understand native speakers the first time. Here's how this lesson will work. I'm going to say a sentence at a fast pace 3 times, and you need to write down exactly what you hear in the comments. Are you ready? Here's the first sentence. We need to nip this in the bud. We need to nip this in the bud. We need to nip this in the bud. Did you get this one? I said we need to nip this in the bud. Now let's talk about need. Notice that I didn't pronounce the D, need, because if I do that, it forces me to take a pause, which slows me down. So if you don't pronounce that D at the end, you'll be able to speak faster. We need to. Notice how to becomes more of an unstressed to. We need to nip this in. So notice here, we have this in, and again, I can connect those together, and I can take that S sound, and I can add it to the beginning of in because it begins in a vowel. This sin. And it sounds like one word, this sin. This in the bud.
You need to nip this in the bud.
Now, what does this mean? When you nip something in the bud, it means you stop something before it becomes serious or permanent. And that something that you want to stop is a negative behavior or a problem or some sort of issue. I use this expression with my little kitty, Sasha. When she was just a kitten, she used to scratch at the furniture. Now, obviously, this is a negative behavior that I want to stop. And if I let her keep scratching, then it will become a permanent habit, a permanent behavior. So I needed to nip her scratching in the bud. I needed to nip it in the bud. So maybe there's an issue or a problem that you want to nip in the bud. For my students, I would say you need to nip your fear of public speaking in the bud, which means you need to stop it when it's just a small fear. Because if you let it grow and grow and grow and grow, it's going to be a lot more difficult to overcome. So you need to nip your fear of public speaking in the bud. So if you're with me, put that in the comments. Nip fear in the bud. Nip fear in the bud. Put that in the comments. And I certainly hope that my channel and these lessons help you do that.
I just want to nip any problems in the bud.
Gotta nip this thing in the bud.
Going to nip this thing in the bud.
You need to nip this in the bud.
Let's try this again with another listening exercise. I'll say it 3 times. Don't blow his comment out of proportion. Don't blow his comment out of proportion. Don't blow his comment out of proportion. Did you hear what I said? I said, don't blow his comment out of proportion. Don't is a contraction of do not. Don't. It'll help you speak faster. And again, drop that T so you don't take a pause. Don't blow. Blow is. So notice on his, I drop that H and I combine those two together. Don't blow is comment. Out of, you can reduce those into one sound, outa. Don't blow his comment outa proportion.
You're blowing this way out of proportion.
Now let's talk about the meaning here. When you blow something out of proportion, you make an event or a problem seem more serious than it is in reality. So let's say you have a job interview and it's going to be in English. But remember, you nipped fear in the bud, so you're not afraid to speak in public, right? But imagine that you didn't nip fear in the bud and you're stressing and you're anxious and you're nervous, but the event is going to a job interview in English. And you make it seem like this big, terrible, scary event. So you could say, don't blow it out of proportion. Or if you're telling a friend how nervous you are about this job interview, your friend could say to you, you're blowing this way out of proportion. Now notice here I added way out of proportion. It's very common to add way to make it sound stronger, so to emphasize it.
You're blowing this way out of proportion.
Blow it way out of proportion.
You're blowing this way out of proportion.
Let's try this again. I'll say it 3 times. My client really chewed me out. My client really chewed me out. My client really chewed me out. How'd you do with this one? I said, my client really chewed me out. Now let's talk about chewed. Notice this is an ED verb, a past simple verb, but the pronunciation is a soft D, chewed. Now again, we can drop that sound when we're connecting it to other words so you don't really hear it. My client really chewed me out. And notice how I take me out and I combine them together. Now I use a soft y sound to combine two vowels, me out, yout. So I add a y in front of out, yout. But I combine it with me, so it sounds like one word, me out, me out. So you don't hear it when you're speaking at a fast pace, but if you slowed it down, you would hear the very slight y in front of out. My client really chewed me out.
Your boss just chewed me out.
The expression is to chew someone out, and this is when you tell someone angrily that they've done something wrong. So this is not a positive thing. Now notice the difference between these sentences. I chewed my assistant out. The client chewed me out. So notice the difference. In the first one, I chewed my assistant out. I'm giving the angry comments. The second one, my client chewed me out. I'm receiving the angry comments. Now sometimes my students, maybe even you, sometimes my students chew me out in the comments section. They tell me angrily that I've done something wrong in the video. So please don't chew me out. Put that in the comments. I won't chew you out. I won't chew you out. Please don't chew me out. It's not very pleasant to read negative comments, so don't do it.
Chew me out about something.
More like chewed out. I've been chewed out before.
Wanted me to chew you out.
Let's try this one more time. I'll say it 3 times. We're not laying anyone off. We're not laying anyone off. We're not laying anyone off. Did you get this one? I said we're not laying anyone off. Now notice where, this is a contraction, we are, and notice how unstressed it is. We're not. Now, as a contraction, you could also say we aren't. So both of those contractions are common. I just chose to use where. We're not laying anyone off. Now notice how I can combine anyone off. Off starts with a vowel, and anyone, it ends on an N sound. So I can take that N and just add it in front of the vowel. Anyone off, anyone off. And it sounds more like one sound. To lay someone off, this is when a company stops employing someone because the company doesn't have the money or the work to employ that person anymore. So your manager or your boss could say to you, sorry, our sales are down, so we have to lay you off. Which means that they don't have the money to keep paying you, so they can't employ you anymore.
Talking about laying people off.
I had to lay them off.
I had to lay off 27 robots.
To lay someone off is the active form. It's the subject doing the action, but it's also very common to use the sentence structure to get laid off or to be laid off. And this is when you are receiving the action. So this is when you lose your job because your company doesn't have the money or the work. And remember, we use get for the transition from not laid off, so employed, to laid off, so the transition from employed to unemployed. That's to get laid off. Now, to be laid off, that's simply talking about your current state. So now you are unemployed.
I wasn't fired from my job. I was laid off.
I got laid off.
Wait, we're gonna get laid off?
Now let's do an imitation exercise so you can practice these pronunciation changes and you can practice speaking fast, just like a native speaker. So I'll say each sentence again 3 times, and I want you to repeat the sentence out loud and imitate my pronunciation. Here we go. We need to nip this in the bud. We need to nip this in the bud. We need to nip this in the bud. Don't blow his comment out of proportion. Don't blow his comment out of proportion. Don't blow his comment out of proportion. My client really chewed me out. My client really chewed me out. My client really chewed me out. We're not laying anyone off. We're not laying anyone off. We're not laying anyone off. Think of everything you've learned in this masterclass so far. I have one more lesson for you. My students frequently ask me about the difference between can and able. When should they use can? When should they use able? So let's review those rules now. Today, you're going to learn the difference between can and be able to. Now, both of these are used to talk about ability, but the difference is in the sentence structure that's possible and also what type of ability. So first of all, you need to know that can is used for general ability. So we use it in both the positive form and the negative form in a very general context. For example, I could just say, I can swim. I can swim. Just in general, anytime, anywhere, not specific to a specific pool or a specific place or a specific type of water. Just I can swim in general. Now, the opposite, of course, the negative, I can't swim. So it doesn't matter where I am. It doesn't matter what type of pool I'm in, what type of water I'm in, what time of day it is, where the location is. It doesn't matter. In any context, in a general context, I can't swim. So can is used in positive and negative for general ability. Now let's compare that to be able to. So be able to, this is used for a specific ability. Now, what does that mean? If it's specific, you can think of it as specific to a time, a location, a specific type, for example. It's limited. So I could say, I'm not able to swim today. I'm not able to swim today. Now, I wouldn't just say I'm not able to swim because that sounds like a general statement. And if it's a general statement to all places, all times, all situations, I would use can. I can't swim. But if I say I'm not able to, that means it's a specific time or a specific location. So I might add to that sentence and say, I'm not able to swim today because the pool's closed, or because I have an important meeting, or because I'm not feeling well. So there's a specific reason that's preventing that ability. So that's the first important distinction. Can, general, be able to, specific. Now, the other very important thing you need to remember is that grammatically, these are different. And that's because can is a modal verb. Modal verbs are limited. They're limited in the sentence structure that they can use. Now, can as a modal verb is used in the present and the future. Be able to, this is a verb expression. The verb, of course, is the verb to be. That's the verb that's conjugated with the subject and the time reference. As a regular verb expression, we can use this in any sentence structure, any formation, any verb tense, anywhere on our timeline of past, present, or future. So this is very important because remember, I previously told you that can is used for a specific ability. But Let's say you want to talk about a specific ability in a sentence structure where a modal verb is not possible in that sentence structure. If that's the case, even if you're talking about specific ability, you would use be able to. So you use be able to when can is not possible grammatically. Let me give you an example to make this very clear. So I could say a lifeguard needs swim for 20 minutes without stopping. So in this case, this is a general ability. This is something that a lifeguard needs any place, anytime. It's just a general ability. But what about this blank here? What do I need grammatically to complete this sentence? Well, we have to look at the sentence. I have need as a verb. Needs, the lifeguard needs. Now, need is a verb. The next verb has to be in the infinitive form. Now, can as a modal cannot be used in an infinitive form. It doesn't exist. Modal verbs are just the verb. They don't change in different structures. So in this case, I can't say a lifeguard needs can swim. No, that grammatically doesn't work, even though I'm talking about general ability. I need an infinitive. Because of that, I have to use be able to. And I'd say a lifeguard needs to be able to in the infinitive form. Now I have a correct sentence. Congratulations, you've completed the masterclass. Think of everything you've learned in this last hour. Do you want me to make more masterclasses just like this? If you do, then put yes, 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 put yes, yes, yes in the comments below. And of course, make sure you like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe so you're notified every time I post a new lesson. And you can get this free speaking guide where I share 6 tips on how to speak English fluently and confidently. You can click here to download it or look for the link in the description. And you can keep improving your English with this lesson right now.